Hi everyone, today we're doing a texture workshop. I'm just going to show you some basic things. You can use this as a jumping off point to experiment and to try techniques of your own that you can implement into your own work to just bring some more life and texture. So today I'm using mixed media paper. This is great for using dry or wet mediums, and today I'm going to use both. I'm also going to use ink, pencils, crayons, and some surfaces to make some textures. So a pencil is a really nice way to get some texture, and you can do a few different things with it. You can do some really nice light and fine drawing. This can help a digital drawing to feel a little bit more natural and organic. I'm just gonna kind of make some shapes here. And you want to consider how large your texture is and if you're going to repeat it or if you want to make a large enough texture that you only use it once in the shape that you're thinking of. Okay, so that's a pretty classic pencil texture. So the last pencil that I used was the 3B. This is a 6B, so it's a little bit thicker. So I'll make a little bit of a different texture. It's not quite as fine, but it has that similar pencil texture to it. And I talk a lot about how pencil texture can feel really nice and just add a different feeling to your image, but if you're not careful, it can feel a little bit childlike. So you have to consider what your audience is and what your image is for, and just be aware of that. And speaking of using utensils that are childlike, using crayon might insinuate that your work is a little childlike or that it's meant for children. So that's something to keep in mind. It's all about how you use it. Okay, I'm going to switch over to ink. So I'm just going to blot it here. And I'm going to water it down. And ink has a really nice texture. Sometimes when it goes on, it looks really dark and it dries lighter. And you can play around with using a really wet brush or a really dry brush. So I'm just kind of making different textures and thinking about how this will affect my image. I can play around with using gradients, or if I just want to kind of create a pattern or just an interesting feeling. This way my image is not so flat and feels like it has maybe some dimension or just some more interesting elements in the piece. You can consider how different tools affect the texture. So I was using a smaller brush, now I'm going to use a really large brush. I'm going to see what kind of texture I can make. That has some really nice lines to it. Something else that you can try in making textures organically is just using different surfaces, and you can place your paper over a textured surface and just go around your house and see what interesting textures you can make. This texture already has a pattern on it, so it's kind of creating a little mermaid tail pattern. So this is a pretty good set of textures that I can use in a little sketch. So I'm just going to wait for the ink to dry, and then I will scan it and I'll bring it into Photoshop. You can of course use digital texture making techniques, and I'll include a tutorial video link as well. So you can choose any way that you want to make textures for your image. This workshop is all about experimenting, trying out new things, and implementing them into your work and seeing if they help. So I'm going to show you what I do with the texture once it's in the computer. So I've done this very quick rough sketch. And I'm just going to see what it looks like if I bring in some textures. So starting from a scan, I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to get rid of anything I don't need. And part of the reason that I did my textures in black and white is so that I can more easily get rid of the background. It just makes it easier to adjust the levels the way that I want to. And what I've done is, so I've made the darks darker and the lights lighter by adjusting these levels. And then I'm going to select white, and I'll see, I can see that some of this that I don't want has gotten selected, but let's see. I don't know if, I think that's not too bad for what I want. So I'm going to select what I want, and I'm hitting copy, and then I'm going to create a new layer and press Command V. So I'm going to bring these down. So I know that there's a few places I want to put some texture. And I think I mostly want them in the sunglasses for this one. I think I might play around. And actually what I might do before I do anything is I'm going to make this. Okay, so I'm going to do, and then I'm going to duplicate the layer. I'm going to hide one of them so that whatever I do with this one, I know that I have my original one there. Of course, I also have my original textures here, but it just makes it easier for me to have it all in one place. Okay, I'm going to get rid of these two. And yeah, that seems about right. I want to make sure it's on the right layer, so I really just want it to affect these two shapes here that I've just selected. An easy way to apply textures is to use multiply. And so you can see that it has become translucent, and it's just kind of laying over all of the shapes. I'm going to play around and see where that's really cool, the way that it is overlapping with the sunglasses shapes. So that's what I'm going to do. And for me, you could use a mask. I know a lot of people like to use masks. I personally don't. I think I just like to keep things clean. The advantage of having a mask is that you can continue to move around the texture and readjust it, but I feel pretty confident about this, so I'm just going to delete everything else. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. All right, there we go. Okay, and I think I'm also going to put some texture in her shirt. So I have my other layer. Got to make sure you're on the right layer all the time. Okay, this should be enough. Yeah. So again, actually I'm gonna copy that. Create a new layer with just that. Use that for something else. Okay, again, and you can try doing different things. So this makes it translucent and also kind of transforms the color. You can lighten it. Yeah, I would definitely just play around with all different layer modes and what they can do. I might just go back to kind of the tried and true. I actually really liked the color burn, and I might stick with that, but I'm gonna try a few things out. Yeah, okay, back to color burn. So again, I'm selecting the shape of where I want it to go. Okay, this was my layer, right? Yeah, that's about where I want it. Okay, so I'm selecting my shape, and then I'm going to come back to where the actual texture is, and I'm inverting what I've selected, and then I'm deleting everything else. This already definitely elevates the piece. And I might see what I can do with the background as well. Okay. I don't know, that's just a trick I really like using for some reason. Okay, let's make this as big as the background. And because I've scanned in my textures at 300, it can go pretty large. And it's not too fuzzy. Okay, so again, I need to make sure that this is in the right place. Bringing it down so that it's only on the background. Again, I'm going to try multiplying it. And another thing you can do if you're playing around with this, that doesn't have enough contrast, but something I could do is I can also play around with the opacity of maybe I just want it to be kind of a light texture in the background. Maybe I'll go back and then drop the opacity down. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. This also makes it have a kind of collage kind of a feel to it. Okay, there's one other place I want to put some texture. And I think it's in her hair. I don't know. I might also put some texture in her face. So maybe I will duplicate this again. Okay. I'm gonna hide one. Okay, so this needs to be under, well, it can be over her hair. Let's see if it does anything. Because the hair is black, I might have a difficult time. So I lightened it So maybe we'll do that. That's kind of interesting. So I'm going to select a little hair and jump back to the layer with the texture, invert, and delete. I don't know, I think that's still maybe a little too high, so I'll bring it down just so it has it's just interesting a little bit. Okay, I think the last place I'm gonna bring some texture is to her face. Just because I don't want it to feel like it doesn't fit in with everything else. Same deal. All right, that's a little too dark. I don't know, that kind of doesn't do very much. I actually really like that, maybe for everything. Let's see. I don't know. This is just kind of a fun sketch, fun to play around, but it definitely has a different feel to it now that I've added all this texture versus what it looked like at the beginning. And drop the opacity down. Yeah, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about that. All right, so that's my little texture tutorial, bringing in some organic textures to make your illustration just feel a little bit more interesting.